So hi everyone, just to introduce myself, so I'm Giuseppe Martoriello, co-founder of iion. We are an Australian company, but as you might guess from my name and from my accent, I'm not Aussie-mite, I'm Italian, but I've been living there for the past 10 years. So we're about 45 ionites with the goal of redefining monetization and advertising for gaming. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. The first topic is understanding Google policy changes. There's been a lot of rumors in the industry, a new policy announcement from Google. We're going to try to navigate through that. Then we're going to look at game monetization strategies to combat any potential decline in CPMs and revenue. We're going to also work on capitalizing on untapped markets and unlocking brand dollars. And then obviously we're going to see how iion can actually bridge the gap for publishers to help with the above. So this is the first slide. We're going to look at, if this is how your ad stack looks like, you're not alone. Most gaming publishers that have, a really high exposure to Google revenue, either through AdMob or Google Ad Manager. We deep dive a little bit more into that, and we saw that, behind AdMob and GAM, 70% is actually selling to Google Ads. So Google Ads is a very strong bidder behind Google. So this means that, the policy changes from Google will impact most publishers because it's mostly about Google Ads. So let's have a look at the way, the old world, let's say, the way it used to work. So we had bidding partners, and we made it quite simple in this case. We only put 3 bidding partners, and then we have, waterfalls. And we also simplified there. We only have 4 price points because 200s wouldn't really fit the slides. But we know that most partners, they have, very long waterfalls. So the way it used to work, obviously, you had, different price points. You would sell to AdMob, then you would sell to GAM partners, then you would sell to a second GAM partner, then again to AdMob. And you were segmenting your demand side, in a waterfall system. And the idea is that, obviously you leverage floor prices to optimize your yield, right? So it's kind of like what we call the airline strategy, where, if you book a trip from Hamburg to Lisbon, the first few seats would sell at a different price than the other seats. As demand ramps up, the prices will also increase. So this is the reverse. You try to first sell at a high price, and you're segmenting basically your demand side that way. So you're leveraging floor prices to increase your yield. In the new world, and this is the possible setup that will happen after November 1st, on top you have all the bidding partners. AdMob is moved to the top, and Google Ads will basically only bid on the AdMob bidding layer, which means that, AdMob will sell to all the other bidders, but Google Ads will only bid on the top. The waterfalls will still work, so we'll still have, all the Google Ad Manager partners. You'll still have AdMob, but this will mean that they will be, basically they will be less relevant if they only sell to open auction. Now, the good thing of Google Ad Manager is, Google Ad Manager was born as an ad server. So it's not only a demand source. You're not only selling to the open auction of Google, but you can also leverage it as, to sell direct campaigns, to run programmatic campaigns, programmatic deals, PMPs, and so on. So if you work with Google Ad Manager the right way, you can actually channel different demand partners. So it is true that obviously Google Ads will not bid on the waterfall, but if done right, it can still be a relevant part of your strategy. In terms of a summary of what's going to happen, so on the left side, we have basically the policy changes. So AdMob is moving primarily to bidding, as they say, and Google Ads will only respond to just one call. So what does it mean from a revenue perspective? So bidding clearly will increase its share of voice. That's undeniable. When you have such a strong partner moving to bidding, it means that it's going to be more competitive, which means that the bidding CPMs will increase. But what we have seen, and the feedback we have received from publishers, and it just makes sense, you will have less the Google CPM might be lower than it used to be, just because you can't leverage, 100 price points and 100 pricing rule to basically outbid against each other. So there might be some revenue implication for publishers moving forward with revenue and CPMs that might drop. So what can we do to combat any potential? It's already a challenging time. CPMs have already been going down and CPIs have been going up. So what can publishers do to combat those potential revenue decreases? So in game monetization, there is basically two things you can do. You can work with your existing sources. You can improve yield, tweak your floors, tweak your CPMs, change the refresh rate of formats, things with your existing things. Or you can try to add more revenue, diversify and secure additional revenue, add completely new formats, and add new and unique demand streams. So for the purpose of this, we're going to focus on the second one, which we think it's more important, it's more disruptive. Three main things we're going to look at, explore under-monetized regions. Game monetization is all about, the Pareto law, 80-20. You're always going to make 80% of your revenue from 20% of your traffic, which means that you have lots of users that are going to go under monetized. So it's important that you work with partners that are stronger in those regions. We're going to touch a bit more on that later. And also it's important that you unlock branding budgets, right? So gaming is the battleground of performance campaigns, lead generation, app installs, but how can we unlock the brands? How can we get brand budget to spend on gaming? One way is also to add more brand appealing formats. We're going to talk to that a little bit later. So let's talk about, the monetization opportunities in underserved regions. We took, all the data that we have with publishers and with AppMagic. We saw that, most publishers will have 8, 10%, 15% of their downloads in the US, but then most of the revenue comes from that region. And then when we look at the downloads, they come a lot from APAC region, MENA, Brazil, LATAM, Brazil, India, Indonesia. Those typically have the lion's share of the traffic. So it's important that that publishers work with companies that are stronger in those regions, because that can really have a strong opportunity. We can also look at, if you look at the APAC region, there is 1.5 billion gamers in that region. That's pretty much, almost half of, the gaming population in the world. So which means that if you can tweak a little bit the CPMs, if you can increase your CPMs and your revenue in those regions, it means that you can acquire users that relatively at a lower cost, which is really a big opportunity for publishers. So it's very important for publishers to work with strong partners in regions that are underserved at the moment. The next opportunity is branding. In marketing, there is the 60-40 rule. You should spend 60% of your budget in brand building opportunities, and 40% you should spend it on sales activation. Now, if you look on the right side, that's what happens with mobile gaming. Out of the $60 billion pie, only 21% goes to brand-based budgets. Obviously, we have app installs. We know that it's the bread and butter of the gaming ecosystem. The more app install budgets are spent, the more the industry grows. But we also want to make sure that we grow those brand budgets. Why are they so small compared to TV or digital out of home or web and other digital and non-digital channels? What can we do to grow that pie? While performance is still going to be a key, but what can we do to increase that brand budgets? And why is it so small? Mostly because of two reasons. One would be perception. Obviously, gaming audience hasn't been the sexiest in the world. The large media groups, they still have a bit of that stigma, so we need to change that. They also don't typically always like the intrusive ad format, so there's something we can do as an industry to change that. And also it's very fragmented, right? So there is, a new gaming studio that pops up every second day in the world. So it's quite hard for gaming publishers to go and talk to the publicists, to go to talk to the Havas, to the Dentsu, and really have meaningful conversations across all the media agencies. So how can we unlock brand dollars? So as I mentioned, the big constraint obviously is inventory. We need to make sure that we look for more immersive ad formats. The second one is brands need, a scalable access to diverse pool of games. They want a curated marketplace, right? They want to look at all tennis games. They want to look at Formula One games. So if you're just one gaming studio or one publisher, it's hard for you to go to talk to those agencies to run campaigns across just your games. Also, agencies, they act different in each market. If you close a deal with a publicist in London, it doesn't mean they're going to have campaigns for you in Indonesia. You need to act basically in each market. So almost you need to have a sales team or a platform that is specialized in gaming to attract media groups. And that's where we come into place. We built the immersion platforms a few years ago. We launched it to the market last year. And it's a platform that is specifically designed for gaming. We have, in-game ads. We have around the game, which is, the basic, the interstitials that rewarded the banners. And we have away from the game, which is, gaming influencers, websites that talk about games. And we made it very simple for agencies and brands to run their campaigns using the platform. We also connect with all type of gaming publishers. So we are a holistic solution for for advertisers across gaming. We've also added specific tools that are very attractive and appealing for agencies, like brand uplift studies, to basically improve measurement on gaming. So we want to be basically that one platform that brings brand budgets to gaming. The way we work with publishers is quite easy. We made it very simple. We didn't move away from the GAM integration, so very easy for us to integrate. No need to change the current setup, and then we can funnel through that the open auction demand, the immersion demands, all the direct campaigns, and all the programmatic demands, PMPs, programmatic deals, and so on. And then we can integrate through with the mediation platforms, all of them. And in terms of how we look at things, we want to be a global partner. We are a global partner, so we focus specifically with those regions that are underserved. Being an Australian company was kind of an easy step for us to tap into the APAC regions, and we've closed deals with basically either the big media groups, or we have exclusive resellers of our platform in certain markets. So either we have our own sales team, or we have resellers in markets where we're not present. And our goal is really to be a global leader in the gaming industry. We have, the brands that we work with are, Lego, Fastex, IKEA, so all big brands. A little bit of a success story. So we launched our direct campaigns with Quali, and we saw a really good uplift. This is a specific example with Middle East. So we basically ran just open market for 2 weeks, and then we added the direct campaigns for another 2 weeks, and we measured the uplift. And we saw a 500 increase in the revenue and the fill rate on that specific market. And obviously, Middle East, it's a smaller market compared to most to other ones. So it's just a proof of concept in terms of what we can achieve once we roll up across all the other regions. Now, if you didn't find it too interesting, there is a summary video to make sure that we captured everything that I mentioned. Let me just launch it. Cool. Any questions?
Have we got any questions for Giuseppe?
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned an ideal split between branding and performance advertising, which is 60-40. I wonder where it comes from and for which categories it's applicable.
That's mostly for let's say big brands, the way, the marketing typically is split. If you look at, brands like, Chanel or L'Oreal, typically that's the way they would split their budget. They will look at 60% brand building and then 40% brand activation, sales activation.
Would you recommend to do the same thing for game developers?
Again, it depends on the size, but typically I assume gaming would be more of a performance, user acquisition would have the lion's share in that case.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, you can find iion at their booth just outside in the exhibition area. Giuseppe, thank you, my friend. Can we get a round of applause, please?
Thank you.